How are women changing enterprise across Africa, and what more can be done to spur others to success? That's one of the key questions being asked at the Global Gender Summit in Rwanda. I'm Femi Oke.
I'm Malika Bilal. Today, 3 women entrepreneurs join us from the conference to talk about how they run successful companies in a business environment that still favors men. Send your thoughts through Twitter and YouTube.
Kigali is the setting for this year's Global Gender Summit, marking the first time that the event is being held in an African country. Organisers hope to improve opportunities for millions of women across the continent who want to be their own boss.
Women entrepreneurs at the summit are sharing stories of the challenges they face while advocating efforts to make it easier for other women starting out in business. Sub-Saharan Africa has the world's highest proportion of women involved in enterprise, but many women find it hard to make their startups sustainable, particularly when they have little access to credit. This week sees the launch of a Pan-African plan to make it easier for women to get loans to support their fledgling businesses. Musician Angelique Kidjo is among those giving support to the initiative.
We're joined from the summit by Flora Mutahi. She is the CEO of Melvin Marsh International, which manufactures Melvin's tea in Kenya.
Diana Mbogo is CEO of Millennium Engineers, a renewable energy company operating in Tanzania.
Yvette Ishimwe is CEO of Ariba Water Group. It provides infrastructure for clean water in rural areas of Rwanda. Hello, ladies. It's good to see you. I am just curious as to at what point did you feel comfortable saying, I am a businesswoman, I am an entrepreneur, I am the boss of me? I know you've all got various different stories, but that moment, Flora, when you knew it in your bones, that you could confidently walk out and say, yep, I run a business. When was that?
Wow, mine has been a very interesting journey because I actually was only employed for 9 months. I never got a calling through my college years, so I proceeded with accountancy, and I tried to do the usual auditing and the exams, and I only survived 9 months, and I quit, and I said I want to do business. This was several years ago. Of course, there's no real career known in Kenya as entrepreneurship. Business was known for people who couldn't get a job, and as a girl, I was expected to get married, get a job, and so the story goes. So when I quit, I would say everything broke loose around me. I was going to be a failure from family, friends, and everybody else. But I stuck to my guns, and coming from an entrepreneurial family, eventually, after a couple of weeks, I would say, they sort of said, okay, what do you want to do? Yeah. Now, that was the funny bit, is because I really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to get into business. So from there, the journey began. I went to the local universities and said, listen, I'm looking for an opportunity. One of the things I believe in is that you shouldn't be just regurgitating what's out there. So I created free-flowing salt, which was not available in the market at the time. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I did that for about a couple of months.
It sounds like it took you years to decide that you were a businesswoman, because I was like, what was that moment when you said, I can confidently call myself a businesswoman? So for you, it was a journey. It was a journey before you had that confidence. Let me just check in with Yvette. Yvette, when did you know?
Yes. I think I actually felt always, since I was very young, like the dream to become an entrepreneur. So in 2015, that's when I decided and said, you know what, I'm taking off this journey. And, I called myself an entrepreneur from that moment.
Oh, nice. Diana, when did you know?
I think back in 2015, I was a student, a third year at the University of Dar es Salaam, taking mechanical engineering. I didn't like the employment sector, and one thing I really wanted to do was something that really impacted, gave me purpose, something to wake up in the morning and say, yes, but at the same time, make money. So early on, just before my graduation, I started off Millennium Engineers and ventured into the energy sector.
So I want to play an interesting bit of research that one of our community members found, and I want to share it with all of the rest of our viewers and our guests. And it comes in the form of this, the MasterCard Index of Women Entrepreneurs for 2019. Now, his name is Rufus Mwayansi, and he sent us a video comment talking to us about what this research found. Have a listen.
According to the latest research by MasterCard on women entrepreneurship, top 4 out of the top 5 countries with the largest number of women entrepreneurs are from the continent, and that's a great milestone. Going forward, I think if we see more financial inclusion, targeted education, and a lessening of the cultural hindrances, that we may see more African countries populating that list.
So Yvette, perhaps that doesn't come to a surprise for you because you started a business at 19 years old. So talk to us about what your friends and family thought when you decided, hey, I have this idea, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, my family, first of all, was very supportive. And, my mom was, very encouraging for me, telling me, yeah, take it over. This is the right time. You're not very young to actually do something. And the fact that my mother was also a businesswoman since a long time ago, she could understand my dream and my vision. So she really encouraged me so much. But yeah, a couple of my friends were like, oh, how are you going to do this? You're still young, you still have to go for, to go to college and so forth. But I think, my mom gave me more encouragement, even though some other external kind of feedback was a bit not very encouraging. But yeah, I made it.
Roy, I love the different generations that we have. It's a span of generations from different parts of the African continent. What would you ask one of our younger guests about their journey?
Perhaps I would ask them, well, they're fortunate enough to have been encouraged right at the beginning to get into business. I'd probably ask them what was their next challenge, because obviously for them it wasn't the societal expectation. What was their next challenge?
Diana, you take that one.
So for me, it was access to finance. Seed capital was really a big challenge, and earning my seat on the table. For the energy sector, it's very male dominated. So every time I sat on the table, I knew I had to work an extra mile and sound a bit louder to actually earn my set. So that was one of the challenges, because people perceive you as young, and second, you're a woman. So that was a challenge. And then came in access to finance to actually set up the company. I was lucky that I was young enough and I didn't have responsibilities back then. But I could see that as responsibilities started coming in, the access to finance also became a really big challenge for me to be sustainable in the industry.
I think anyone who has a startup understands or really appreciates the idea of where do you get the money from. Yvette, where did you get your money from?
Yeah, for me, first of all, I thought that when I started my business, the first thing which I could really consider very much wasn't really capital, because I felt like I have a lot to learn first. I really need to understand what works in this business and what doesn't work. And for that reason, capital wasn't a big issue for me. The issue was more on actually the skills needed, the expertise. I was very young, no prior kind of professional exposure in business management, no technical skills in water, mechanical engineering and so forth. So that was kind of, my biggest challenge. And yeah, then I started with $400, which was a very small loan my mom lended me, and then I started using our home water tank. So for me, the capital wasn't the main focus at the beginning. The main focus was actually on skills and expertise and experience, and that has been my biggest challenge at the beginning.
Yvette, I find that so interesting, and I like hearing the varied experiences, because the majority of things that we're hearing from people online who are either trying to start a business or have is that capital was their number one issue. So I want to share a few of those stories. This first one on Twitter, Genevieve says, most women in Nigeria, in her experience, struggle with limited access to funding. Lack of education as well is another major problem. They equally do not get much support from the government. It's really sad. So that's one person's perspective. This next one comes to us via a video comment. She spoke to us about what she's found, and she's the founder of a business. Her name is Nasreen El-Amin. Here's what she told the stream.
Generally, when we talk about removing barriers for women in entrepreneurship, we think of ways to improve the woman, her performance or business models. We need to restructure the systems, make finance more accessible for women, provide support platforms where women can unleash their potentials, and remove industrial restrictions that say a woman can hold a certain position or reach a certain stage.
So Flora, she mentions making finance more accessible is one of the things that needs to happen. What's your take on that, and how was it for you?
Definitely that was a challenge, but very similar to what Yvette says. I tend to find people rush to say it's about access to capital, but do they have a plan first? Do they have a roadmap? Is their business model innovative enough? Those, for me, I tend to find, and the more and more youth I speak to, I tend to find those are more the challenges I find other than funding. Fortunately, today, for me, access to money was an issue. And what I did is I used a lot of, suppliers' credit. Like I used to say, I used to bounce several checks, not because I wanted to, but because I had to pick my stocks, run and sell, and come back and make some payments. So definitely access to funding was a challenge at the time. And fortunately, I found a woman fund that would give will give you double the loan if you got a collateral. And I was fortunate enough to get a little bit of support from my mom, and I was able to grow from that point of view.
Flora,
so access to capital is definitely a challenge.
Flora, when you were in the position where you had to decide which check to bounce, which checks did you decide that you would bounce?
I would bounce the ones from my suppliers because I'd go and pick more product and they say, no, you can't have it. And I say, listen, here are checks. And I'd write them, knowing very well they're going to have it. But I needed to work and I needed to move on. So eventually, slowly is when they started saying, okay, what else can you give us? And, then I had to bring my mom, who was the other shareholder, and all she said is, I'm not giving more money, but what I'm going to do is I'll be here if everything else doesn't fail.
Sure.
But right now, I think there's a lot of access to different kinds of capital that don't actually require collateral. So
more opportunities. Would you say more opportunities now than when you started out, when you were Yvette's age? Are there way more opportunities now, would you say? Are there people saying, we want to help you, let me give you some money?
Well, not like that, but these days it's not always just collateral-based financing. The banks and the DFIs, everybody's becoming smarter and wanting to lend on unsecured loans, stock loans, debenture financing. So it's made it a lot easier for even young people to say, listen, I have this brilliant idea. Can you invest in me? But what I'd also like to tell the youth who are running to go and get people to invest in them is be careful, read the dotted lines. Your idea, your dream could be taken away from you if you're not careful.
Talking about brilliant ideas, Diana, tell us one of yours, because you're about renewable energy, but you are going into local communities, finding out what they need and then adapting it so it's sustainable. For instance, replacing kerosene lamps with solar power. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So what we do is usually go into a community, look into what their energy problem is, and then decide what is the best technology to use in terms of renewable to phase out any, if it's kerosene, if it's coal, the energy that they're using, which is bad. So we are actually working on a project right now to actually phase out kerosene lamps, fishing lamps, and replace them with solar fishing lamps. What I see in this big industry, such as the energy sector, it lacks innovation. And where do we get innovation? Innovation is from the youth. This is something that people haven't interacted a lot with or haven't engaged many young people into designing. So I'm happy that I'm in this sector right now because I believe that the future is female and this is the right time to actually venture into business. So what we do is we innovate what we have, look into the problem, customize our solution to fit that community. And that's practically it.
I love this. The future is female, I agree, and the right time to enter into business for women. I'm taking notes here, and I'm hoping that members of our community who are interested as well in entrepreneurship are doing that too. I know some of them are. I want to share a few comments we got. This first one is on YouTube, Elizabeth Rainey, and she writes, have any of your guests faced challenges of racism or sexism in the workplace? And if so, how do they overcome them? We got a few tweets from people who were asking similar things, talking to us about what they've seen some women face, which is the fact that they're often seen as not intelligent enough or not educated enough. So I'll give this one to you, Flora. Talk to us about a time that you faced either sexism or racism.
Well, I think when I came out with my first product and I took it to the largest supermarket at the time, I remember somebody saying, "So who's behind you?" And I said, "Myself." And the fellow was saying, "Is your product tested? Is it going to meet the mark? And why are you doing this? You're never going to get married. Women don't do this." So in that regard of not being taken seriously and thinking that women are not up to the task, definitely I face that a lot. But what I like to tell youth and other women is, why am I carrying other people's baggage, by the way? I know what I know what I'm made of. I know what I'm up to. So I tend to just, actually take my seat at the table and let it be known that this is what I do and this is what I'm as good as anybody else. So definitely it's there, but it's I keep saying ignore it. It's not your baggage to carry. It's their baggage to carry, not yours.
Yvette, I am just wondering, as an entrepreneur, what is your greatest quality? Because I want to show everybody a little video, an animation of the work that you're doing. But first of all, I want to hear what you feel. Humble brag here. What is your greatest quality as a social entrepreneur?
I think my greatest quality is actually, courage and integrity. I really, I feel courageous no matter what circumstances, no matter, despite all the challenges, all the, the problems that I always encounter on my way. But I always feel like courageous to keep on, pushing upwards and downwards. And that has helped me a lot during this journey, and it's still helping me. It really works out. And then integrity, being able to kind of be true to myself first and to my clients, to my investors, and to my employees has helped me a lot to actually already seeing my business moving further.
Let me show our audience your business. This is Ariba Tap and Drink.
Drinking safe, clean water is a luxury that most low-income Rwandans can't afford. And for most people, plastic bottles are what they use daily, which over time cause environmental harm. With Ariba Tap and Drink, we offer a solar power water ATM using filtration technologies to purify water, making it safe to drink. With pay-as-you-drink system, people only have to pay 0.2 cents per 1 liter or a low monthly subscription using reusable container. Through franchise contracts, we provide work for the youth and women in need for a better life. Together and for better living, Ariba Tap and Drink.
So the animation looks cute. Let me show everybody what it looks like in real life. Are you changing lives yet? Should we get your autograph now before you get too famous to talk to us on the stream? Yvette?
Yes.
Yes. How's it going?
Great.
All right, moving on.
I think a few people might chalk some of the success that we're seeing from some entrepreneurs in Rwanda to initiatives from the government. Now, of course, you're all gathered there for a conference, or you were gathered there for a conference, a 3-day summit. And I want to share some of what was happening there. We checked out the hashtag Global Gender Summit, and this is just one tweet. Someone is quoting the Rwandan president, Kagame: "Being a man in a position of leadership at any level means never having to think about your gender. But being a woman leader means always having to think about how gender impacts your work." And so Rwanda has been held up as one of those countries that is kind of leading the effort on this. Diana, for you, what do you make of this quote, having gone to the summit, being there in Rwanda, but coming from Tanzania? And do you think your government is doing enough to promote entrepreneurship among women?
I believe so. I've also been very well supported with the government. Starting off very early in my business, I was incubated by the Small Industry Development Organization, which is under the government, and then later on moved to DTBI, which is the Dar es Salaam Technohama Business Incubator. I would say that our government is doing a lot of work supporting small and medium enterprises to SACCOs, trying to see how they can build women through capacity building programs in various organizations under the government, as well as try to see ways and infrastructure to move money and finances to these women. So right now, the government is also working a lot with women in SACCOs groups, and they can access finance using that SACCOs group as collateral for loans. So I see a lot of movements being done, and I highly encourage more from our government and ministries. But so far, it's good. It's a journey that every country needs to take.
A SACCO is a saving and credit cooperative. That's what Diana was saying there, just using that acronym. Flora, I'm looking at your Twitter page and it says creator, innovator, and front runner. Let's talk about the front runner bit. How are you bringing other women along with you, other business women, other entrepreneurs? Are you holding open the door? Are you smashing through the glass ceiling? What is the metaphor that you feel is appropriate for what you're doing?
Well, I would still say front runner. While I was the chairperson of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, I was the first lady in 57 years to actually lead that. I have found a lot of women who said, gosh, you sort of made it possible for us and we never thought it could be done. And while I was there, what I did start is a program called Women in Manufacturing, where we are trying to bring women along. Because you'll tend to find a lot of women, in fact, majority of entrepreneurs are manufacturing. However, perhaps in a small scale, in their homes, it's their side hustle. And one of the things we're trying to do in the program is to actually make women scale up. Because it said actually women start businesses, sort of to afford their lives, also to accommodate their lifestyle, but they never sort of tend to take it up to the next level. And that's what we're trying to do in this program called Women in Manufacturing. So in that regard, I do that. I also do a lot of coaching and mentoring, and especially to youth and especially to women.
People online are telling us that is so important, the coaching and the mentoring. This is one person who says women lack proper advice and guidance, which might pose a risk for them to initiate and move ahead in their entrepreneurial ventures. To reduce barriers, a mentor can help her take the right direction and advice, and give her advice during decisions like financial and risk-taking diversification. Yvette, for you, mentorship, did you have any? Do you offer it?
Yeah, at the beginning, I wish I actually had one. And if I can talk to my, younger self when I was just starting, I would actually advise myself to, look for mentors and different mentors, technical and management kind of mentors. And I think, that is actually the biggest need which women entrepreneurs really need. And not only women entrepreneurs, but all the young entrepreneurs out there who are just starting up on their ventures. And today, what I'm doing is actually to mentor fellow young people who are starting up something and they need my advice or my guidance on what I am able to kind of advise them about. So I think really mentorship is key for women entrepreneurs to succeed.
Diana, if you had...
Could I just add something to that?
Yeah, Flora, we're right at the end of the show, so your ad will be one sentence. Go ahead.
All right. Today I had an interesting word called super mentorship. We're here on a program called Invest to Impact, where 100 women have won an award. And what they're doing is they are going to attach super mentors to each and every woman in your actual track. So if you're in manufacturing, whatever you're in, to actually walk with you to make sure that you grow. Right. So definitely mentorship, as very relevant mentorship, is a must. I have a coach, I have a mentor, and I believe you always need one if you're going to grow.
Flora, Diana, Yvette, thank you so much for sharing your business success stories. We really appreciate it. From across the African continent, Malika.
I'll give the last word to a business owner and a founder. Here, have a listen.
I think like if we enable women to be more into business, this will boost our GDP, not only for Africa but the global GDP. So it's commonly said that investing in a woman is like investing in the whole community. So think about investing in more women in Africa.
Thanks to Blendiwe. We'll see you online.